Shadow Corner family. It's your friendly neighborhood life coach, Cyan Gates. I am so happy to be on this episode. You are in for a treat because our guest is the mastermind of creating a space where you can heal your money wounds as well as find out where you've gotten stuck. But she does more than what I am talking about. But before we go into that, welcome to March. I know it seems like the year has started to go back come and go swiftly, but we're going to do our best to migrate into the lovely spring. So in this series, you're going to be seeing a lot of different people talking about money management. I know we talk about self-care and we talk about self-reflection and all those attached and with shadow work. But sometimes we don't talk about like the material innate things. Like, for example, where does our money trauma sit? Or what is our fear when it comes to debt or anything pertaining to it? And I feel like with this, you know how they have March Madness? This is March Money Madness, where we'll be talking about financial wealth, different steps to secure your future, as well as to secure you as a person, mind, body, and soul. So we're going to go ahead and bring out our guest, and we're going to say welcome back to Shadow Corner. This week joining us is Ms. Bernadette Joy, a nationally recognized money expert, entrepreneur, and speaker who has been featured in top media outlets like Forbes, CNBC, and in Good Morning America. She's best known for paying off $300,000 in debt in just 3 years. And now she's on a mission to help others to achieve financial independence. As the founder of Crush Your Money Goals, she's teaching people money independence and taking control of their finances, building wealth, and stop letting money fear hold them back. If you've ever felt stuck in the cycle of debt or wonder how to truly achieve financial freedom, this episode specifically, you need to tune in. So if you don't have anybody with you, grab your friend, grab your best friend, because we're about to talk about debt because we don't know her. Ladies and gentlemen, Miss Bernadette Joy. Hi, how you doing?
Hello, thanks for having me.
Hey, I'm glad that you're here. I know you could be all places today, but you chose to come to be with us. And I'm very excited.
Yes, I'm excited to be here too. I just came back from traveling. It's my first day back in the office, and no other topic I'd rather talk about than everything that you just mentioned in the intro.
Yeah. So here is my first question here. How did all this start? Because I know that when we met at Podfest, you were explaining in your on the stage how you knocked down $300,000 in debt in 3 years, and I'm like, that is insane. How did she do this? Because I don't know a couple people that can't even knock down too much in a year, and they feel like they have to give up their whole paycheck in order to do this.
Yeah, well, thank you for bringing that up. It's been 10 years since I started my personal finance journey, and the $300,000 in debt was a lot of things that I think people can relate to: student loans and credit cards and car stuff. And then also I was in a mortgage that I really had no business being in on a home that I was not living in. And so there was a lot of the idea that debt was going to solve my problems and I would just figure out how to pay it later. And then the moment came where I was just like, I don't know how I'm going to pay this all off. And so I'm going to have to come up with a plan. And the short version of it is that's what I wrote the book about, Crush Your Money Goals. The 5 steps that I walk people through that spell out the word crush is essentially the steps that I took to pay down the debt. But the first thing that I had to do, which everyone asks me, like, where do you start and how do you crush that amount of debt, is to do the C in crush, which is to curate your accounts and just take stock of what you have. And the first thing that I realized was that I had $72,000 of student loans that was accruing interest daily, like the amount of a Starbucks coffee every day. And I was like, I don't want to do that. So
right.
when people ask like, well, how do you do that and where do you start it? So, well, do you even know what you have, including not just the interest rates, but really the dollar amounts that you're paying in interest, and realizing, wow, like I thought that making more money was going to solve my problem. But even if I made more money, it wasn't going to solve the problem of all this money leaking out the other side in the form of debt.
Okay. So, speaking of that, I know in your book you talk about the five mistakes you can make when it comes down to getting started. So I know one I resonated was having too many goals at once.
Yes.
So that resonated with me so well, because I know that a lot of times when I used to see my family, my mom and them, they would plan trips and everything, and they would try to see if they can store a nest egg here, store a nest egg there, and then just sort everything out. And then when something hit the fan, then they felt like they had to cancel everything. It was kind of like an avalanche effect, where it's like you take one pebble and you're trying to balance one table, like a heavy table, and put all the stuff on it thinking that it's going to stay.
Right.
So how is that the number one thing, number one mistake when people when it comes to money?
Yeah. So, it's very common that someone who comes to me for coaching will say, "Hey, I want you to fix my problems." And it's like, "Okay, well, what are your goals?" And it's always 5 or more goals that people have. They're like, "I want to pay down debt, but I also want to put money towards savings, and I also want to invest, and I want to send my kids to college, and I want to buy a home, and I want to go to the Beyonce concert." Like, I want to do all these things. And the truth is, even millionaires have a limited amount of time, money, and energy. And so saying that you're going to do all these things at once is pretty much a surefire way to fail. and and people tend to get overwhelmed. And then what happens when we get overwhelmed? We end up trying to cope on the other side with maybe spending on things that we don't want to spend on, or going into depression or anxiety, which a lot of my clients have experienced because of money challenges. And so the reason that I focus heavily with my clients, if you have any sort of consumer debt, basically other than a mortgage, and that includes student loans or personal loans, car loans, credit card debt, especially credit card debt. My recommendation for folks is that if you have any sort of debt, that's really your first and only goal, because, and I talk more about it in the book, one of the other mistakes that I see people make is that they treat debt as a long-term lifestyle instead of a short-term solution. Like, if you get into debt because you had a major medical accident, or if you lost your job, or if you something you get divorced. I mean, I've seen many logical and very reasonable reasons to get into debt. But if we're treating debt as the first resort rather than the last resort every single time we want to solve a problem, then that's where I see people getting into trouble. And so, going back to your question of like, well, why is having too many goals at once a big mistake, is that I coach people from their 20s until their 70s. That's the age range of people I have in my current client roster. And there are people who are still paying off debt, specifically student loans, like 20, 30 years after graduation.
Okay.
And so to imagine that you're just carrying this burden, this weight for you for 20 or 30 years when it didn't have to be that way. And the beauty about debt is that if you decide that it is actually a short-term solution rather than a long-term lifestyle, once you're done with it, you're done. And then you don't have to think about it anymore. And then you can put your efforts towards other goals that require a lot more long-term planning.
Okay, so what are I'm trying to get my brain right. What is the biggest myth about debt and financials that you hold on 1 second? Alrighty. Sorry, everyone. My alarm went off. So my next question is, what is the biggest myth about debt and financial freedom that you wish more people knew about? Because I know that when I was younger, they told us, like, if you save up enough coins and you put it aside, and you invest your money, then you'll have more money than you realize. You have to have your money work for you, or it was like you're not going to get anywhere if you don't save.
Mm-hmm.
What are some like myths that you can put out that we don't know or we should know?
So for me, and this is controversial in the personal finance space, but I don't believe in paying down debt and save and investing at the same time. I really don't. Again, other than a mortgage, and the reason that the mortgage, in my opinion, is exempt is because you're going to have to pay a housing bill no matter what. Like, you're going to have to pay for rent if you're not paying for a mortgage. But other than that, there's a lot of rhetoric out there that says exactly what you said. Well, you should put, even if you have $5, $10 here, and you should put it into investing first of all. And people are seeing the harsh reality of it now is that investing is not guaranteed. Yes, the stock market has gone up traditionally over the last however many years, but depending on when you started investing and when you pull your money out and how long you can stay in it, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to make money just because the stock market made money. And also, you should only be investing money that you can afford to lose. And if you are deep in debt, again, particularly credit card debt, you cannot afford to lose that money because your bills will be due, whether or not the investments go up or down. And so one of my really big pet peeves around that is that advice was really helpful before people had 20 to 30% interest rates on student loan on credit cards, and thousands upon thousands of dollars in student loans. That was rhetoric and advice that was helpful in like the 70s and 80s. But it's not, to me, it's really not as relevant now when the vast majority of people who are entering the workforce is going to start off with some sort of debt.
Okay, so going back to like the five mistakes, another one you said is find an advisor that gets you, and I thought that was really great because not a lot of people. There are some people that will like project compare.
Mm-hmm.
Like they'll say, "Oh, child, I've been there." Like, no, you haven't. Like,
Mm-hmm.
trying to pay a mortgage and also pay school at the same time. No, you have
Mm-hmm.
not. And I'm struggling eating nothing but ramen noodles. Like that type of get you. I don't think it's the same. So can you explain that to us?
Yeah. I actually posted just before I got on this interview with you. I posted in my threads because I was getting frustrated with, this again, the talk of like, oh, to solve all your money problems, you need to learn how to invest in the stock market. And it's like, no, actually. And I wrote in my threads today, I'm reading it to you now. It says, money planning is emotional. Money planning is political. Money planning is racial. Money planning is gendered. Money planning is cultural. And money planning is generational. So anyone that tells you the solution to your money problems is to simply invest in the stock market doesn't care to understand you, nor do they understand the intersectionality of your human experience. And I wrote that today because, in the news right now, there's just a lot of rhetoric that is trying to assume that all people have the same opportunity, and that is just not true in the US. That is just not true. Like some people had a silver spoon and some people had a wooden spoon and some people had no spoon.
Right.
And so, specifically for myself, I can only speak for my own experience as a first generation Filipino American, to be told in the past by my previously very white male, significantly older financial advisor that, that I didn't need to be emotional, or that race had nothing to do with, or gender had nothing to do with how I plan my money, just did not resonate with me. And so I really think it's important for people who are looking to not only become financially literate, but to become financially free, which is really what I teach, is that you definitely need to have people in your corner and not just folks on the internet who
So
actually, right, who can
financial
actually
advisor
relate.
Google.
That's right. Who can actually relate to what specific intersection between all of your lived experience and how that impacts your finances. That to me is really important, which is why I became a financial coach and I did not become a financial advisor, because financial advisors care about collecting fees from you. Financial coaches care about making sure that your money is actually in congruence with the life you want to live.
Okay, so what another mistake that I also saw was comparing your success story to someone else.
Mm-hmm.
So I know that we look up to these celebrities and we like, okay, so I'll give you my example is like, I remember when I watched Steve Harvey and there was an episode he was talking about when they cut the cameras off. And he was like, you will know the difference between economy and first class because they close the curtain at first class. You get warm towel, you get all this other stuff. Once you sat at first class, you'll never be able to go back to economy because then the mindset is different. He was
Mm-hmm.
like, once you transport your mind there, then you'll understand why people try to hustle hard to get rich. And I was like, I'm not trying to hustle hard and be like the Joneses. I just want to make sure that when I swipe my card, that it says you have this amount in here and you can buy what you want, but I don't have to.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
like when we talk about like comparing people like the clothes, the clothes, the chains, the bags, and all the other stuff, is that in part of the comparison, or is it just the success story of the person that's saying it?
Mm-hmm. So, I'm in the camp. We're recording this in 2025. I actually really hope that celebrity culture is dead, meaning that we stop worshiping these celebrities who really don't care about us. And I'm not saying that as that they're bad people. I genuinely like having met a lot of celebrities and stuff of just like understanding that, everyone has again their own lived experience, and the consistent comparison of like, oh, I should have my skin look as good as them, or their my clothes, or like look at their beautiful house and all that stuff. I actually think we're past that.
Mm-hmm.
Or I at least for me and a lot of my clients, I don't really have the issue with people that I personally coach that they're comparing themselves to like Taylor Swift or like Beyonce. I think what a lot of people nowadays are confused about are the people that we see on social media. And there are a lot of people who are like, internet celebrities or influencers and stuff who are trying to pretend that they're like everyday average people and kind of pushing these different narratives on us. When I'm finding out behind the scenes, and I go to a lot of, conferences, and I've met a lot of creators, like where what they're posting online isn't congruent with what their actual life is, right? And so in the personal finance space, there are a lot of people who are pushing this idea of like entrepreneurship is better than 9 to 5, for example. I'll give you that as an example. There's a lot of people who are saying like, oh, if you work a 9 to 5, like you'll never become a millionaire. Like your life sucks because you work a 9 to 5. And I'm like, excuse me, there's actually a lot of people who I know personally who did work a 9 to 5 and became wealthy. Entrepreneurship is not the only way, and actually entrepreneurship is not for the vast majority of people, because it's very hard to go without a steady paycheck. You need to have a
It's
certain
not
kind of
for the weak, I
resilience.
promise you.
Yeah,
For
right.
anybody,
It's
it's
not for the
not
weak.
for the weak.
It's not for the weak.
Mm-mm.
And I've had a
Starting
lot of
a business is like different than
right.
trying to sit here and have the money up to do so. And it's like you're looking for clients, you're trying to do all this other stuff. And I'm pretty sure like for you, being a coach is a whole different thing when you had to start and have clients come to you and ask you questions and
Yeah, yeah. And so, like bringing up your example of Steve Harvey, where he's talking about like, oh, once you're in first class, you never go back to economy. As someone who can afford to actually fly first class and still chooses to fly economy, there are certain things that just that mean success for some people. And I hate to say it, but especially in a lot of communities of color, like the measures of success are still like very external. It's very like, oh, if you fly first class, if you have a nice suit, if you drive a nice car, like that means you're successful. I promise you, a lot of those people are deep in debt and are not happy with their lives. And there are some people who I have met who might have those things are also well balanced, right? But you just don't know. And so I don't think there's a point in comparing when you actually don't have the full picture of anyone's life, no matter how much they tell you that they're being honest with you on social media. And I think the biggest challenge that I have with my clients is that, and it happens so frequently, like they always tell me that they're behind. And I'm like, according to whom? Like how did you base this idea that you're behind? Like according to whom and to what? And 9 times out of 10 is because of what they saw on Instagram, not because of what they actually saw in their finances.
So I'm trying to figure out like how did we personally got here? Like when that was literally king of people to look at other people's story, doing compares and contrasts and see, oh, I want to be like that. I want to do like that. Because I've seen it in my culture and I've also seen it like in others, but I never looked at them as like they were idols. I just said that, oh, that's a person that put their toes in the dirt and they got what they deserve. So I mean, it is what it is, but I was like, I can't compare them to me because they don't look at, like, they don't go through the same things I go through every day. Mm-hmm. So I know we've gotten to this deep part of the topic. So let's talk about like building wealth and financial independence. Now, you talk about investing a lot, talk about investing in your book. So you talk about it. So how can someone new to investing get started without feeling intimidated?
Yeah. So it's very simple. In the US, I'm talking to the US people specifically, is people have overcomplicated investing. All you need to do is open up either an IRA, which is an individual retirement account, or if you are at a company or an entity such as like the government where it has a 403B or 401k. And I know that sounds like a bunch of numbers, but essentially, if you have a retirement account available through your employer, then you start there and you don't go anywhere else until the bag is full. It's really that simple. And people have overcomplicated to be like, now I need to learn day trading, or now I need to buy Bitcoin, or now I have to do. No, you don't. Actually, if you typed in how to start investing, then you don't need to go anywhere but your retirement accounts. And if you don't have an employer who has a retirement account available, then you open up that individual retirement account, which anyone can do as an IRA. And what makes me so crazy is that I go through a lot of people's financial plans, and they have made this core mistake is where they think that they are doing better by putting money into a bunch of different accounts, when actually you should just fill up the one account until it's full. So what I mean by that is if you, for example, open up an individual retirement account, the maximum amount you're allowed to put this year in 2025 is $7,000. Or if you are older than 50 years old, you're allowed to put more, right? But for people under the age of 50, you're able to put up to $7,000. Unless you've put $7,000 into that account, there is nothing else you need to do. But what I see people doing is they open up a bunch of different accounts and they're like doing all sorts of like triage on things that they don't understand. And what they don't also realize is that by opening up other accounts other than an individual retirement account, they're paying more in taxes. And so I always have to ask people when I get on these coaching calls with them, I'm like, did you mean to pay more taxes? Do you love paying more taxes? And they're like, what do you mean? No, I of course I don't want to pay more taxes. I'm like, then why did you do this? Then why did you open up this account when you could have done the exact same thing? So in the book, I make kind of the analogy I call investments your luxury bags. And the analogy, if like you can visualize this, is like I look at as investment accounts. Let's say they're Louis Vuitton bags, just for the sake of a visual here, right? Yeah, is like what a lot of people are doing is they have like Louis Vuitton bag here, Louis Vuitton bag here, Louis Vuitton bag here, Louis Vuitton bag here, and they're just carrying a whole bunch of them, but they have their wallet in one, their phone in the other, their chapstick in the other one, and then like they have random stuff in the fourth one, not realizing that 3 of the 4 bags also have a hole in the bottom in the form of taxes. So like, why would you carry around 4 bags that can all do the same function when you can just carry one bag? And that doesn't have a hole in the bottom. That's the way that I analogize it to people. And that seems to help people understand like, oh, I'm doing too much at one time.
Well, I also noticed that like there's some people that like to have multiple accounts so that way it seems like it's out of sight, out of mind type of concept. So a lot of people, they have 4 accounts total. So they have the account where your check, like your money comes out of, like all your bills. The second checking is like your spending account where like if you wanted to splurge on something, that's there. Then there's the emergency savings, like just in case like the car breaks down or you need to get something fixed in the house. And then there's the second savings for like what are you trying to save for, like fun savings, like going a trip to like Quantico or even the Philippines. Like, do you have these four things? Are these accounts still like, is that reference still valid, or is it just like a waste of time?
Generally speaking, I tell people in terms of just pure cash accounts, because you're just talking about cash accounts, you didn't even get into investing accounts, is really, I only see people needing 3 or 4 accounts, but it would be a checking account for all of your regular bills. It would be a high yield savings account for emergencies. It would be high yield savings account for anything that you're saving towards, like a vacation. And then a fourth one would be if you have a business. I have $1.97 million. I only have 3 money accounts. I have a lot of investment accounts because of the different things that I'm invested in. But what I find is that when people have to hide money from themselves, and that's the biggest thing, it's like, oh, out of sight, out of mind, then you really haven't focused on your actual habits, which is why I wrote the book. Which is, if you have to hide money from yourself, then there's something more deeply rooted to understand, well, why are you not able to actually plan your money ahead of time? And that's usually a sign that people don't have a budget. If they have to have multiple accounts to hide money from themselves, it's because they don't have a clear plan or a clear budget for where their money is going.
Okay, so what are some common habits of financially successful people that others can adopt? Since we're talking about like investing and putting in one account or 401k, what's something that the average person can adapt to get to their fire number, their financial freedom?
Yeah. So, again, that goes back to crush. So this is what I love. The book, it's so easy to answer these questions for me because the book literally explains all of this. And so I tell people now, like, people aren't really allowed to pick my brain anymore because they can just go buy the book. But the synopsis is, for C is curate your accounts, meaning if you have accounts out there that you don't understand why you have them, or they're not really using them effectively, or they're bleeding money, then you need to curate those accounts. Rich people don't lose money on interest and fees and things that are unnecessary, right? So that would be curating. The R, and you alluded to it with the fire number, is no understanding and reversing into independence, and specifically to know what your number is. Almost nobody that has come to me for coaching had actually knew what their independence number was. Most people don't understand that in order to retire, it's not an age, it's an actual calculation of how much money you need in investing. And so simply put, it's 25 times your annual expenses. And so once you have that number, then it goes into the U in crush, which is to say, okay, let's say I calculated my fire number to be, $2 million. Where am I now? So U is understand your net worth. So if your goal is $2 million and you're at, for me, for example, negative 300,000 when I first started this, not even, at zero, then what are you going to do? Like, do you really think that your actions today is going to close the gap on $2.3 million? And that's an honest conversation people have to have. It's like, do you think that the behavior you have with your finances now is going to get you to financial independence, or is it going to be more of the same? And so once you understand, okay, this is where I'm going, this is where I am now, then it goes into S, which is to spend intentionally, which is a lot more around the habits that we've been discussing up until this point, which is around, okay, am I being very intentional about all the money, or am I just hiding money from myself? Or
Right.
am I budgeting appropriately? And then H is heal your money wounds, which is why I became, again, a financial coach versus a financial advisor, is that what I found was that most people aren't making good financial choices, not because they're dumb and not because they don't know better. It's actually they know what they're supposed to be doing. Most people know what they're supposed to be doing. Most people know I shouldn't get into credit card debt. Most people know I should save money. Most people know I should invest. But what comes up is the most common emotion is fear. And most people are making their financial choices based off of fear, not off of their dreams. And a lot of what I focus on, I just came back from a 3-day summit with my clients and lay bare to them, wow, the reason that you haven't made more money or ask for a raise or put more money into investing or buy that home that you always wanted is because you're afraid of what people are going to say, or you're afraid what your boss is going to say, or you're afraid that you're going to fail and what are people going to think about it. And so a lot of the healing your money wounds is around actually creating a plan that is revolving around what you care about, not what everyone else thinks.
And I like that because it's not like putting a band-aid on it. Because a lot of people don't realize you can bleed on others when it comes down to like your financial fears and money wounds. Because you could have one friend that's like, "Yo, don't do that because I remember this experience. It did not work out for me." And then you can talk somebody out of something that could actually aid them into where they're trying to go.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
I know that you've had some highs and lows with clients and all the things. What's the most rewarding part of helping others in their financial journey? What do you get out of this? Like, what does it tickle that little person inside that's like, "Yay, I'm glad to help," or is this is like this is a birthright that everybody should know?
You know, I would say initially when I first started this, the reason I kept doing it is because I did get a little bit of a high every time someone took action. That's really why I've become a coach and enjoy it. I was catching up from like I was gone for over a week, and so I came back to like 500 emails, and I was like digging my way out of emails before this interview, and I got two messages. One of them from someone again who I've never met before who read the book, and she said, "Thanks to reading your book, I paid off my car." And the $1,000 that I used to spend towards my car, I'm not going to put it towards my house. And I never would have done that if I hadn't looked at the bigger picture after reading your book. And because her thought was, oh, I have a low interest rate on my car. So what's the point of paying down the car? Well, if you pay off the car, then you can take all that money that used to go towards the car and put it towards your house, and you can retire earlier because you have a paid off house. So she never thought about that until she read the book. And that made me feel so great. That's this stranger who I've never met before decided to take action and is going to be sooner to financial freedom. But if I'm being honest, I just turned 40 last week, and I
Hey,
thank you. And
happy birthday.
happy birthday. Yeah.
Birthday.
I I've been reflecting a lot on like, do I keep doing this? Why do this? Because when I come back home to 500 emails, there's nothing more I'd like to do than just sit on the couch instead of doing this stuff sometimes. And the bigger thing for me lately has been really, and it comes back to your questions about investing in the stock market. We are at a crossroads, particularly in the US, in that politics and money and freedom are so intertwined right now. And the fact that billionaires are essentially running our company with no, I mean, running our country, right, with no really regard for the vast majority, I think, of what people are really struggling with. I realize that at least for the next couple of years, my focus is helping as many people I can to get to their financial freedom numbers so that they have the choice to invest the way they want, to live the way that they want, to move to another country if that's what they want to do or whatever. But right now, I realize that my goal is to get people to reach freedom, not just financially, but in every aspect of their life.
Okay, so this is the question I usually ask when we get towards the end of the podcast where we're gonna wrap it up here. If you could go back in time, what financial advice would you give your younger self? Or like what advice would you give any part of you, like whether it be 12, whether it be 20, 30, like what would you tell them at this time since you're at this point in pinnacle of your career?
So I would have told myself when I turned 21, which is almost 20 years ago since I just turned 40, to stop drinking so much tequila and take all that money that you spent on shots for
Oh
people that you don't
goodness.
even like, people you'll never see again, and take that money that you used to spend on drinks and alcohol and put it towards your retirement instead. I probably would have retired faster if I didn't do that.
Right. Okay. So where can people this has been a very rewarding episode because I know that this kind of debunked a lot of like the mental money habits that like my parents have set, and also like for others because like in the and I will say this like from my only personal experience, and I can only talk about mine. in my experience, like literally my mom would say, if you put that dollar away, that dollar could be $500. Or if you put that $500 away, it could be 1,000. She's like, it's all about how you save. And then between you and Miss the Budgetnista that I read, you two are both giving me two different perspectives, but are going for the same goal. And you've helped me a lot. While I was reading, I was like, oh, do I have any bad habits? Wait a minute. We need to sit down and talk about this. And I know that this is important because we're getting to a point where it's like the number will matter on where you sit financially and how to stop the generational trauma that is like student loan debt and then the credit card debts, thinking that credit card is going to save you. I've known of someone a long time ago, they would use one credit card to pay their rent, and then they would use the other to like get groceries and stuff, and then they would pay them off of whatever the paycheck is. And I would say, like, wow, she's really maintaining. But in actuality, according to your book, you're actually digging a deeper hole than you need to. Like you're putting one thing in different bags when you can just carry one. And I truly appreciate you coming on the show and giving us the insight, like the punch in your face, like get your stuff together. And so can you tell people where they can find you, where they can find the book? I know it's on Amazon, Kindle.
Yeah. So, well, thank you so much for this interview. I really appreciate you. And I'm so glad we met at Podfest. You can find me at crushyourmoneygoals.com. That is where you can learn more about the book, my programs, and I also have a free guide. If you go to crushyourmoneygoals.com/free guide and you're not quite ready to invest the $18 into the book, I created a free guide for 2025 on all the tools and resources that I think is a great place for you to start.
And I'll be putting all those stuffs in the show notes. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Also, don't forget to follow Miss Joy here. I keep forgetting the direction. Miss Joy here. She is a legend in her own right. So she needs all her flowers and your undivided attention. She will literally take you into the future. Thank you so much for being a part of the show. And we'll see you soon. Okay?
Bye.
All right, people. As always, Shadow Corner is going to wrap up here. We're all about teaching you in different aspects, not just self-care, but trauma is universal. And it doesn't have to be in one place, just like inward. It can also be in your finances and your social skills. And I'm trying to bring that to light to you anytime I bring guests along. Miss Joy did not have to grace us with her presence. So don't forget to follow her, buy her book, and we will be back in a little while, but stay awesome in the meantime. Bye for now.